welcome back to the show. We're a couple days late this week. Our real world jobs got in the way a little bit. But obviously, if you've been following along, there's a lot of, I call it chaos around the finish Saturday night. There's a lot of complaining, a lot of fussing. What's bad is I'm more upset now than I was Sunday night when it happened, just because some things have been said. But anyway, Brett, take it off to get us started.
All right, so if you didn't miss it, or in case you missed it, because the Fox broadcast sure did, commendable to them, though. At least they showed the replay, right? And they went back and broke it down about 5 times. But, again, we do love Fox, but sometimes they miss some stuff just like anybody does. But anyway, to get past that, I'm a TV guy, man, so it bothers me 10 times as much as it bothers any other NASCAR fan. In fact, I had a coworker who does not watch NASCAR come up to me Monday morning and say, Brett, I understand why you like NBC more than Fox when it comes to NASCAR coverage. So he actually had seen some of the stuff because obviously working TV. But anyway, so to basically break it down here, Todd Gordon, which is Joey Logano's former crew chief, actually was his crew chief in 2018 when he won the championship, and Steve Letarte, which was Dale Jr.'s crew chief for many, many years, also Jeff's crew chief, Hendrick Gray. They did a great job. They broke it down. Actually, NASCAR posted it. I saw it on Twitter or X or whatever it is. I encourage anybody to go and try and watch it. They broke it down, and basically what they broke down is what I'm going to share, right? The 19 and the 20, or excuse me, the 19 and 11 on the front row, right? The 5 and the 22 are on row 2. So coming out of 4, the 5 and the 22 do not roll. And as you're coming to the restart zone, they start to accelerate up. And as they accelerate up, Denny looks in his mirror and sees that the 22 is approaching his bumper. And he says, I got to go. And Denny said this is much on actions detrimental this week. Said, I saw the 22 coming up. I'm looking out of my peripheral at the 19, and I'm looking at my mirror to see the 22. He said, I'm watching both of those guys. He said, when I saw them go, I said, I got to go. And he said he was not looking at the restart line. So then he's not looking at the restart line. That's how he jumped the restart. For me, I think Denny had the best short run car, and it was going to be between him and the 22 there. The 19 was good on the long run all night. I think it's very insignificant, in fact, that he jumped the start. I think what is significant here, and I do agree with Joey Logano in the sense that you can't penalize other guys for doing this in the future because Denny got away with it. And I'm with Joey 100%. Got to stop complaining, though. I think what Martin Truex did Sunday night, post-race interview, unacceptable. He was a crybaby, just like he's been in the past. I don't like that. I can't stand that out of a driver. I don't like Joey going on his radio show, even though he said a lot of stuff I agree with. I don't like him going on his radio show and complaining the way that he did. These guys have the right to do that. I'm just saying, as Brett Loftus, my opinion, I don't like that. Larson probably complained the most or the mildest out of the 3. Didn't like that either. Again, and I'm talking about a guy here. I love Joey. Joey's my all-time favorite driver in the history of the sport. But you can't go and complain about these things after they've happened and NASCAR's not going to do anything about it. You can complain and say, this can't happen to me, but you can't complain about it because it already happened. Denny was playing in the parameters of the law. Okay, he jumped that restart. NASCAR can't review it. Denny knows this. You got to tip your cap to the 11 and move on here. Maybe there's a change in the rule at the end of this year. We know NASCAR loves to change rules mid-season. You can't change it right now. Everything has to stay uniform through the rest of the year. That's my biggest takeaway, in that you can't let it come to a certain point to where you're out of 4 and you're already going right. But it was 5-10 feet max. So, again, I'm not that mad at Denny. I'm with Denny. He had a tweet the other day that said, I wish somebody else would release a new paint scheme or something so we can get past this. Those are my thoughts. Jonathan, I know you disagree. Maybe ahead.
Well, I don't really disagree. When Sunday night, me and you was talking about it like we always do. He jumped the start a little bit. I wasn't that worried about it, but what really bothers me is come Tuesday when Elton Sawyer goes up there and literally says this to every fan that listens to NASCAR, watches anything about NASCAR. If it had been lap 10, 30, 100, 300, he basically said he probably would have been penalized. I know it's 2 laps to go. 2 laps at Richmond on fresh tires is roughly going to be like 44 seconds in that range for 2 laps. I know it's not a lot of time. At the same time, we're less than a week at that point, or 8 days past when they went after the race and reviewed footage of SVG cutting the course on the last lap. And once you got the right angle from Fox, I mean, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't like he jumped 30 yards before the cutoff, but you can clearly see it. But I also understand, too, that technically Joey and Kyle were breaking the rule that but here's the problem. This comes to where I don't blame none of the drivers in this situation, really, of what happened. It's NASCAR's inconsistency at calling. And it's been an issue. Fans beg for consistency. And this was not the only call that NASCAR messed up Sunday night, in my opinion. And we'll get to that in a minute because I sent you a message as soon as it happened, and you know what I'm talking about. Like, really? Because it affected my guy. But anyway,
let's go ahead and talk about it. Since we're talking about NASCAR inconsistencies, go ahead and let's talk about it.
Kyle Busch did not bring out a caution Sunday night to anybody with a set of eyes.
Yeah, I my dad, which to his credit, he doesn't complain about NASCAR as much as he used to, which is kind of the opposite as you get older. I feel like you get a little bit more complaining. As Elvis obviously agrees in the background here.
Sorry, y'all. Elvis.
Hey, Elvis is our third guest today. Elvis. I was giving Kyle and Joey down the road, and Elvis was getting pretty upset about that. But I think as we continue on,
Elvis,
about as you get older, right, you don't complain as much. My dad texts me and says, I don't think that's a call. I don't think you can throw a caution there. Especially in the middle of this massive fuel run, guys trying to flip the stage. And like you said, pretty much lost Larson the stage. I mean, it didn't pretty much, it did. I mean, Kyle's car never turned sideways. Kyle never blew out a tire. Kyle hit the wall, did something we've all done playing NASCAR video games, hit the wall, and then went right back into turn 1, or turn 2, exit 2, I should say.
And the one thing about Fox's production team is we zoom in on everything 6 times further than we should. There was nothing that fell off that car. That is the good thing about them zooming in the cameras. Nothing came off that car. And talk about consistent. How many times have we seen over the last 3 years? I'll go back all the way to 2021 because there was a race specific that Larson was in. It was where the tire rolled out in the infield grass at Kansas. They waited until everything cycled out to throw the caution. That's what they've been doing since at least 2021. It doesn't matter what has happened, unless it has literally been a 3 or 4 car pile up. They don't want it's like they don't want no kind of strategy to be played to change the running order. Because a lot of times people stay out long hoping for a caution, but they never throw it. Why in the world but all of a sudden this week, out of nowhere, you're going to throw it.
I think there's something that goes on. I think there's something that goes on in these rules committees where they try to focus on certain stuff each week, and then that then creates inconsistencies. And I'm with you, man. Jonathan, I'm going to say, I think that's the best analogy I've heard out of all the stuff I've listened to this week with the SVG comparison to the end of the race Sunday. I think that was the best analogy I've heard because you're right. I mean, that's in a matter of 8 days NASCAR showing its inconsistencies at its finest. And again, I don't think it's to the fault of any driver. I agree with you. Everybody wants to give Denny down the road. It's not to the fault of any driver. It's not to the fault of Joey and Kyle either on that second row there for rolling the start either. This is them playing the game that NASCAR sets up, and then NASCAR's not consistent here. So I agree 100%. But I do agree, I think that as far as the complaining has to stop, man, by other drivers. I get that you're upset, but the lack of class, especially that Martin Truex Jr. showed Sunday night, for him to be 42, 43 years old, a champion of the sport, was extremely disappointing. It really was. And again, I know that Denny jumped the start, but what he did to Larson, ramming him in his car door, and how he conducted himself on pit road, and saying that Denny used him up when Denny just raced him hard in the turn 1, that was very classless in my opinion, from a guy who had some of the most respect out of anybody in the garage area, who also always races respectfully, by the way. It was very out of character, really, is what I should say. Not maybe classless is the wrong word. Very out of character, because that's not Martin Truex Jr. It's very disappointing for me to see. But to be fair, as human beings, we all have out of character moments, and his was just exemplified on national TV. So I do want to give Martin the benefit of the doubt at the same time.
You know, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt too, because in his defense, I would be upset too, because if the caution doesn't come out, because of his Toyota teammate dumping Larson, he wins the race. I mean, he had the best car. Really, once you got about halfway through the race, he was the best car. Now, at the end, Joey Logano seemed like he was a little better on the real long tires, but some of that too, I think, is I don't know if Logano had a top 5 car. I don't think he was better than Truex. The problem is we the next gen showed where it struggled again. Even on short tracks, air matters, and Truex got in lap traffic with no tires, couldn't pass nobody.
And I don't think anybody's was really better or worse. To be quite honest with you, Jonathan, I think the 3 best cars were the 19, the 5, and the 22. I don't think either one of the 3 could distinguish between each other once you got on the long run. Kyle had the best short run car. The 19 and the 22 are really good on the long runs, but you're exactly right. The leader is in a detriment when he's leading on the short track. And it bugs me because you're catching these guys. They want to air block because they want to stay on the lead lap. Well, finally, once the leader builds up enough momentum to pass him, second place has gained all this. Well, you saw it the other night, and it's not Ross being whatever. And again, obviously, I like Ross. I'm not trying to go to his defense here. It's just an example to pull out. You saw how hard he raced Truex for 15 laps when Martin was trying to lap him. Joey catches it. He lets Joey go right by. Why should he hold the 22 up at this point? He's holding the 19 up to stay on the lead lap, what he's supposed to do. Once the 22 catches him, there's no point to hold him up. So that's the disadvantage the leader has, and I'm with you. You got to fix something on these short tracks. That's a talking point that we've been on since we started podcasting, before we've known each other. You especially got to fix it for your All-Star race coming up in about a month and a half, and obviously this weekend too. But I don't know. It's very disappointing.
Yeah, and the thing about Ross, that's been a thing since NASCAR has been here. If you're the last car on the lead lap, you're gonna fight harder. But there's a difference between now and 10 years ago when the leader caught somebody who was going to lap down. Most time it didn't take them 15 laps to pass them.
Nope.
I mean, it's just, and it ain't just Truex either. Any driver that leads these races when they get in lap traffic, it's like they might as well be running 15th pace car. And it's frustrating to watch. And I just really hope somewhere behind the scenes Goodyear is working on trying to dissect what happened at Bristol and put some of that in some of these tires moving forward. I know right now it's too soon because you got a tire test and stuff. I just hope for the future, since NASCAR seems like they won't budge on the horsepower issue, since they are not willing to do that, it doesn't appear. For whatever reason, I hope Goodyear's back behind the scenes working on that.
And I get it at the bigger tracks. Okay, I'll compromise here. I want 1,000 horsepower everywhere at all the 23, 24, 25 tracks they run at. However many that's on the circuit this year. I'll budge on the 1.5 miles and beyond, because 1.5 miles has been wonderful. Don't change anything. But when we're going to these tracks a mile or shorter, like if we're going to Dover or under, if we're going to New Hampshire or under, like you got to put 1,000 horsepower in a car, man. Like you said, you got to burn the tires off these things with these motors. You got to make guys manage the tires. You have to. It is a necessity at this point. We have to see it, because this is what distinguishes the really, really good drivers from the great drivers, and the really, really great drivers from the elite drivers. And we just don't have that right now. We don't have that. And it's very, very disheartening. But I think that's pretty much from Richmond. I mean, that covers that.
I just got 1 point talking about tires. The track dried out pretty good on the rain tires. Mm-hmm. That's one thing we haven't talked about. We did run the wet weather tires for the first time in a points race in the Cup Series on an oval. But, the track had dried out by lap 20, I believe. Good enough. The racing downgraded as soon as they put the slicks on.
Yep.
I mean, and people said the same, and really it was the same way at North Wilkesboro last year. The heat races, or whatever you want to call them for the All-Star race, were pretty good races. And then we get into the actual All-Star race on the normal slick tires. There's only really one car that could pass all night, and that was Larson, who Cliff Daniels just got. Well, he ain't got lucky. He's a genius. Figured out a magical setup and just whooped everybody. But he was literally pretty much the only one that could pass. There was a couple other ones that would pass a couple cars. But if you go back and look, the top 5 starters in that race, for the most part, finished 2nd through 6th behind Larson.
Yep.
There's something I think they can learn from this rain tire, the way it wears, possibly. I don't know.
I don't think it's necessarily wearing. I think the way that it races, though, because they said, I think what Mike Joyce said, you could run 100, 150 laps on that tire. Like if they would have had to run those rain tires or those wet tires, whatever they want to call them, the whole race, I think they only had to go through like 3 to 4 sets of them. So those tires don't necessarily wear. It's how well that they race, though. And I think that's really, I'm with you. I think that's really the happy medium here when we're talking about the tires. It's also a pretty monumental event, right? I'm glad you brought that up, that this was the first time we had this in a points race. Actually, another buddy that doesn't watch NASCAR, I called him when they dropped the green flag. I said, man, there's ever a time for you to watch a NASCAR race. It's right now. I said, they're running on these rain tires. I'm like, you got to turn it on. And obviously, nothing ended up happening. But it was interesting to see.
It produced some great racing. 3 wide at Richmond. I mean, it was exciting. I was hoping that it would start raining again, to be honest with you. I mean, it was exciting to watch. It was good racing. But I guess, before we move on, we do actually need to talk about some finishers this week instead of just complaining about NASCAR. And the one thing I didn't touch on Fox, I grew up loving Fox with Larry Mack, Mike Joy, DW, the whole crew. Number one, y'all need, I don't know if Larry just doesn't want to travel anymore. If that's the case, cool. But if he's willing to travel, you need to put that man at the track, in my opinion. But, man, the camera angles, the last restart, the reason that it took the fans wasn't immediately on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, is because we didn't see the front 4 cars live. We saw like 6th on back. I mean, it's just camera angles, simple stuff like that you would think. And there's been real notable people like Dale Jr. talk about it. And I mean, it's nothing major, it's just small stuff. Now, one thing I am tired of hearing about, Brett, is the complaining about commercials. I'm sorry. Have you went and bought anything lately? Anybody's watching this? Everything's higher. They paid a lot of money. They got to have ads to pay to get their money's worth from. I mean, and they do better than what they used to. You got the Toyota side by or all out is what they call it, I think. And they're doing things to help make you not miss as much racing. But that's just part of the world we live in, guys. I mean,
that's how the sport runs, though. I mean, if people don't understand television or radio, again, just give you a little bit of insight here. The reason that the viewership is important, and they share it with us every week on social media, it's went up by X%. The reason that's important is because then they can take those ratings, Fox, NBC, Amazon next year, Turner, whoever's doing the race, they can take those ratings to these advertisers and say, well, we get this amount of ratings in this market. This is how much we want to charge you for a 30-second ad or a 15-second or a 45 or a 60. So ratings, yes, are important because they lead to money, but they don't, it is a direct correlation in the sense of it leads to money, but it doesn't bring in money just because of viewers. Viewers bring in ads. Ads bring in money. That is how these TV contracts work. That is why NASCAR is having to go to all these different networks next year, because not everybody wants to break off a piece of that Kit Kat bar for only, half the season. Nobody wants to spend that much money, which is why we're getting split up next year. So yes, ad revenue is huge in any professional sport. Just look at the Super Bowl every year. That's why they share those numbers with us. So yeah, we have to have commercials. It's very unfortunate, but the timing of the commercials could be a bit bad sometimes. I think that is a correct gripe, but you have to have commercials. It's just, you have to have them.
Yeah, it is frustrating where you'll go live for 25 minutes, it seems like, when under red flag, and as soon as they go lap 3 after the green flag, it seems like they go to commercial. But people just need to learn that and quit complaining about that. That's not going away. If it goes away, you're really going to be complaining when you're paying $85 a week to watch it on pay-per-view.
Yep.
So, I mean, but also to me, that's one thing that makes it even more special when you have the chance to go to one of these things in person. So you get to watch it from literally start to finish with no interruption. It just makes when you actually go to an event more special. But anyway, just looking at some finishers from the other night. Josh Berry finished 11th, drove straight through the field. He had a better car than that, but the pit crew on that 4 car struggled Sunday night.
I just keep thinking about more stuff. Bring up Josh, him and Daniel Suarez. We haven't talked about that yet. Again, I just think that's an instance where Daniel's got to have some self-awareness. He said after the race, I'm going to race Josh how he raced me, and we're fine. But if something happens in the future, Josh has to know what happened. Buddy, you drove across his nose.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? And again, Daniel's not really a guy I have an opinion on. We've said on the podcast he's racing for his ride. I think even when his win in Atlanta because of the other talent at Trackhouse, not as a detriment to Daniel necessarily, but because of Zane and SVG and maybe some other guys that could be coming up. He's racing for his ride this year, but it's just like Daniel got to have more self-awareness. You have to. But yeah, Josh obviously, he had probably a top 7 car, I think, and just couldn't get back up there on that final restart.
Yeah, well, 2 straight stops, I think combined it was 11 spots they lost, or something in that range. That pit crew had some bad pit stops. His teammate Noah Gregson finished 12th. That is his second career start at Richmond in a Cup car for a team that has been downhill for a couple of years. I mean, Noah has had a lot of impressive moments. Now, and you could tell Sunday night, it was a night where he learned as the race went. He didn't just get up there; he just slowly moved up. Yeah. And we didn't hear nobody call his name hardly Sunday night, which for Noah is a good thing. It means he's learning and finishing all the laps because he ain't getting in wrecks. Noah right now probably would be right around the playoff bubble, pretty close to it. That 18th rank probably if it wasn't for that penalty. I mean, he's had a solid year.
Him and Ty, I thought was really good. You know, with their beef in the Xfinity Series, they raced around each other for about 100 laps the other night, and they raced each other so respectfully. And I think that's something, no matter whose side you were on during that beef a couple years ago, that's something we could all agree that was pretty neat to see, I think.
Yeah. I will say this, no matter what side it was, those beefs like that is what makes the sport great at the same time, them rivalries.
I agree.
Hopefully, and I got a feeling with the way they both are, if Noah gets that 10 car where it's running up front like Ty is, it probably will come back because I still don't think they like each other. I don't think they've made up by no means. No. But looking down, Kyle Busch has been a struggle lately for that 18. Man, and for a couple of weeks they were competitive, but the pit crew was letting them down. But the last 2 or 3, they have just been off with the cars. And unfortunately, even with the new rules package last year, their Achilles heel was the short tracks. Unfortunately, so far after Phoenix and now Richmond, it appears to be the same.
It's just a rough weekend for RCR.
Well,
I mean, Austin complained on the radio, and Austin complained on the radio, and then new crew chief this week, and man, rough
new
week.
Old crew chief. I don't know any crew chiefs that's been hired and fired for the same driver as much as Alexander has.
God bless him. That's all I got to say.
Man,
God bless him.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go on this tangent right now. I know he's your grandson. I know you love him dearly. When are you going to realize that the problem is not the crew chief? Kyle's just in a slump right now. I have complete faith. Kyle Busch, one of the greatest of all time. He's going to bounce back. And his finishes are kind of like you say with Joey's. It ain't all been where they're just running bad. Especially some of them. Vegas, he was strong. Pit crew. He's been strong. It's just the short tracks they're struggling on, just like last year for whatever reason. And then you hear people say, well, he's won 4 times. And I get that. The first one was a race where Kyle Busch dominated and did the mic drop in the press conference after Austin won it on fuel mileage after running 10th to 15th the whole race. I get that. Awesome. And that was Alexander's first race as a crew chief, by the way, for Austin. But that's more of a crew chief deal for pulling the right strategy, in my opinion. Yeah, you do a good job of saving fuel, but you didn't go up there and beat Kyle Busch heads up during that race. You didn't beat Kyle Larson. At that time, you didn't beat Jimmy Jones. You didn't beat that 78 car that was whooping everybody's butt in that time frame. Move ahead to the Daytona 500. Run it second. Didn't even try to pass the leader. Just wrecked him. I'm not going to sugarcoat. Didn't try to pass. Just took him out. Move on to Texas during the COVID year. Not up there. Him and Reddick both take 2 tires on the last restart. And Reddick gets swallowed up and defends off Austin Dillon for a win. Led like 4 laps that day. And then we all know the August race now at Daytona, where he was running 19th and got lucky that the rain took out the entire 18 in front of him. His 4 wins are not impressive. I'm sorry. At some point,
I don't have anything else to say.
At some point, Richard, I love RCR. I love the history of Richard Childress Racing. I ain't got a problem with Austin as a person. Seems like I hope he needs to go ahead and get behind the front office and start learning how to help run that business, because RCR, just like Ricky is with Jeff, RCR needs somebody to help run that place because he's getting older. Austin needs to take that role, I think, because, man, it's just
Lil
it
Bro
just
needs
ain't
to do
working.
the same thing. Lil Bro
Huh?
needs to do the same thing.
Who
Ty needs
does?
to do the same thing. Ty Dillon. He needs to do the same
I don't
thing.
know how he keeps getting. He's even worse than Austin. I don't know how he keeps getting rides.
Oh, man.
I will
hadn't
give
seen
Ty
you this
credit,
candid
though.
in a while.
He outdid the full-time driver for college the other day. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
That ain't saying
Well,
much.
that's not that hard. Yeah, well,
That ain't saying
it
much.
took me a minute there. It's not that saying much. Daniel Hemrick has one career win in NASCAR. He drove for Brad in trucks. He drove for Richard in Xfinity. He's driven for Joe Gibbs in Xfinity, and he won a race. He's driven for Dale Jr. Now he's driving for Colin, and he drove for him in Xfinity, and now he's driving for him in Cup. Dude has been in good equipment. Let's not get started about Daniel Hemrick. Dude should be in the truck series.
I gave
And
him
he wouldn't even be the best driver in the truck series. Anyway,
Ty only beat him by one spot, though. 29.
Why would you do that to me? I was keeping the blood pressure at one level. You just
Well, I've been trying not to say it for a year on this show, but eventually I was sitting there watching this the other night, and I realized he was in the car, like, why? And then
Daniel
Austin
Hemrick. Daniel Hemrick's in a cup ride, though. Daniel Hemrick.
Well, the same thing for Ty. What's he doing?
And again, I think the Ty and Austin, by the way, I met both of them. They're wonderful people. Ty, in fact, was one of the nicest drivers. Had a little banter with me. Had on a Joey hat. I actually had a little banter with me. Told me I needed a different hat. Wonderful people. Richard, I got a story about him at Bristol. He told me to come into the garage area on the other side of the line that fans aren't supposed to go on to take a picture with him. These are all wonderful people. I don't know Daniel Hemrick, never had an interaction with him. But geez, man, we have so much talent in these lower series. Like Jesse Love at 19 would be better suited. I didn't say he would run better. I said would be better suited in that 3-car right now because what he can be.
Well,
I don't know.
Austin Hill, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it goes without saying, but yes.
I mean, eventually Austin Hill's going to get tired of waiting. I think he's wanting. If you read between the lines, people talk. I think Austin had a chance to go to the collar car that Hemrick's in.
Yes.
If you read, but I think he's wanting to be faithful to RCR. But at some point, he's going to say adios. RCR don't need to let him get away.
That 21 car is going to be open next year. I'm just saying. He can go from the 21 in Xfinity to 21 in the Cup. I'm just saying.
Speaking of the 21, Matty D with that new team finished 18th Saturday. That wasn't bad at all.
I knew you weren't going to say. I knew you weren't going to say. Speaking of Harrison Burton, because his average finish is like 32nd this year.
Well, that's better than where he finished Sunday.
Oh gosh, dude. Well, I
love Harrison and I love the Wood Brothers. It just hurts.
But you can say it this week. I've said it the past 3 episodes. You can say it this week. It just hurts.
I pretty much just said it by saying that he didn't beat his average finish, which ain't good. If your average finish is 32nd, you don't meet that, that's not a good sign. I mean, let's go to Austin Cindric, another person that's got family connections, 23rd, nowhere to be found.
And you made it in the final stage of qualifying. He does it like every week. He has speed in the car. He knows how to run hot laps. And once you get on the track, I don't know what's going on. To be fair, Blaney fell behind. He qualified 12th. He had a horrible day. Ryan's our defending champ. So maybe we'll cut Austin a little bit of slack this week. But then Joey runs second. And as we mentioned earlier, had a top 3 car all race. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Ford and specifically Penske in general right now. Because there's obviously they're always good at the big tracks. Some of these other tracks, man, have not shown speed. And I think that Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, and Joey Logano and Ryan, those 4 have done a wonderful job in very subpar equipment this year. I think Brad is bringing the best Ford equipment to the track, and I think Brad and Chris are also wonderful drivers. They continue to top 10 them to death, which they did again Sunday. Mm-hmm. But I think with Josh and Noah and like I said, Joey and Ryan, they have done a wonderful job in very subpar equipment this year because Ford is very much so behind. Briscoe has shown bright spots, but he's still there's still a little bit more left to be desired for him. But it's just yeah, as a Ford guy, obviously what I am, it's a bit disheartening at times. But
yeah. As far as Blaney, I'll give him a pass on this week because they talked about it. They could have nobody had the experience. They could have guessed wrong on how to adjust that car before the race, knowing that, and they could have just threw it off the whole. I mean, that was a whole different thing. That's the first time the 12 team specifically has been off like that all year.
yeah, Jonathan
So,
Hassel's a wonderful crew chief.
yeah. But every crew chief, I mean, you can make just one small decision, and you can't take, especially with what you can adjust on pit road with these cars. If you make one bad decision, you're done. And especially first time dealing with the rain and stuff, he could have made a wrong decision at the beginning
Well,
of the
like
race to get
Joey,
out.
when they were at Phoenix, him and Paul Wolf, they said we just missed it. We just missed it today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you even go back 2
happens.
years ago, he won the race in the next gen car, the championship race at Phoenix. He always runs top 10 at Phoenix, and that, like they said, we just missed it today. So I don't know. We're seeing a lot of that.
Even
I would
more.
have to say this.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
William Byron. He's a guy I don't give a lot of credit to. That was a really good job by him Sunday. To finish seventh, that dude probably had a top 20 car to start the race. And then him and Rudy, man, they just kept grinding that whole race to get up there in the top 10. Rudy Fugel, man, I give it to Cliff all the time and Alan Gustafson. I think Paul Wolf's really, really good. But Rudy Fugel, man, he is a up-and-coming name here among crew chiefs. I think second or third season on the box. Man, he's been very impressive. And I think this could be another Canals Johnson combo here with him and Willie B. He has been very impressive this year.
Yeah, they are really good together. One thing I'll touch on though too that I forgot about almost. I was about to look at points. Elliott Nation, y'all finally got a top 5 this week. I mean, they've been consistent. His average finish is 12th, like 12.5 this year, which is really good. He's just not getting the stage points because they're doing what made them a champion in 20. They're not shooting themselves in the foot every week. They're good, solid. They just got to work on some stuff. But here's this is what's crazy. This is their first non-super speedway top 5 since Nashville last June. And the last top 5 that he had was Daytona last August before the playoffs started. Man, I did not realize it had been that long. I really didn't. It didn't sink. You just don't think of Chase Elliott going, or any Hendrick car, really. I mean, I know I'm a Hendrick fan, but just as good as that organization is, you would think you would look into one at some point in that time frame, I mean, I'm not trying to just brag about Hendrick, but I mean, it's true. I mean, so it's just crazy to me, but maybe they'll get some momentum going because I think you don't want it to get to a point to where I'm not a huge Chase fan, but there was a point from 2009 through 11 or 12. People don't want to admit it. Our fan viewership hurt because of how bad Dale Jr. struggled. Love Dale Jr. to death, but the truth's the truth. And that's also what I'm worried about too. The next few weeks is going to be real important to look at the TV ratings because all these races have been up from what they was last year, but we've been currently through the stretch of races that he missed last year. So I'm hoping the trend continues once we get back to the races where he came back.
Well, I told you this Sunday night, and you debunked me a little bit because you said it's just one race, but I really feel this way. I think the 9 and the 22 are about to go on a run. And here's why I say that. They had it figured out in 22, and then everybody else figured it out last year. And I think that those guys are so good. I think the guys that they have on top of their boxes are so good that, and I think obviously with what both guys had back in the shop, so good that I think this run they're about to go on, starting at Martinsville, it starts a stretch of tracks that Chase and Joey are really, really good at. And they've shown some speed and they've shown burst like they did at Richmond on Sunday night that I think is going to start a big time run for them. Again, it's just prediction, I think. And I think you can only hold those two down for so long and those race teams for so long. And I think both of those guys are about to get back on the right side of things. I really do. I really do.
Well, I mean, and you very well could be right. My only thing is, I just want to see it for more than 1 week.
Right.
Like Joey's shown flashes of it, and Chase has been consistently getting top 10s, top 10 on the death, and not having those just dreadful finishes like a lot of these other. Like Larson has 3 top 5s, but he also finished in the 30s 3 times. I mean, it's just been up, down, up, down. Elliott hasn't had that. And Logano's, he doesn't have to win like Larson does. But Logano's kind of been that same way, up, down,
Yep.
up, down. But one thing about this playoff format, I mean, it don't really hurt you as long as you figure it out in time. I mean, it could hurt you as far as bonus points, but
You just got to get stage points, man. You just got to get stage points, and when you have the best car, you got to win. I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. You when you have that best car and you are the class that day, you have to win, and that is what Larson is probably the best at. I would say at anybody else in the field. It's what Kyle Busch is really at, and is good at in his heyday at JGR, right? Kyle did that a lot. Where Kyle Busch, I think he would have 2 championships in the Winston Cup format. It had been 18 and 19. Like 19 was his best year. But before that, Kyle would blow motors and wreck all the time. But then when he had the best car, he would win the race. And I think that
sometimes
Larson,
he didn't.
yeah, right. And I think Larson has matured a lot. But he still, when he has the best race car, he's going to win the race, which is why I think he's the best driver in the field. Second in points, even though we talk about his perhaps inconsistencies this year.
It helps when you finish first, second, third. Instead, when he runs good, he does it for the whole race. It ain't just at the end.
Right.
That like when he won at Vegas, he swept the stages and won the race. I mean, when they have a good night, it's really, really good. So it helps make up for some of them bad nights.
He's actually scored the most stage points at any driver this year.
Yeah.
So,
well, Atlanta, he did good in both stages. I really wish my home track wasn't a super speedway sometimes. I'm gonna have to venture out to see him win. It just ain't.
Maybe you need to go to 600 this year. Maybe that's what you need to do.
No, that's what we're trying to work on if the boss lady will permit.
We need some comments, everyone. If you made it this far with us tonight, this morning, whenever you're watching us, Jonathan needs to go to 600. I need that in the comments. I need it in the comments. Strongly encouraging.
And maybe if y'all work some magic, I mean, she can't refuse it.
But yeah.
But anyway, going to the
magic. We need to get that 19 car out of the top spot in the points. That's the magic that we need right now.
Well, we're trying. The 5 teams trying. Hey, if it wasn't for C-Bell, he probably would be the points leader.
God bless him. Yeah, and then Denny in third. Ty's dropped down 2 spots in fourth. Blaney rounds out the top 5 there. Speaking of C-Bell in sixth. Willie B and Chase 7th and 8th. Ross in 9th after a rough day for him at Richmond this past Sunday night. And then Tyler Reddick in 10th. Other notables, Chris Buescher in 12th. Kyle Busch in 13th even after this rough stretch. Bubba's in 14th. Suarez in 15th. BK in 16th in the playoffs currently. Joey's back up to 19th in points. Josh Berry at 5 spots in 23rd. And then Noah Gragson still hurting from that penalty, even though he did move out of the cellar that was among all full-time drivers. He is now 30th in points. Zane Smith now owns that spot, being in the cellar among all full-time guys. And Harrison Burton is right above that.
Harrison's trying to catch the cellar. He's going wrong.
He sure is. He's doing a good job, too.
Noah jumped up 4 spots. Noah's been, you get to the right – if they hit the setup right just 1 week, Noah could be one of them guys. We have a shock winner every year that takes a spot in the playoffs. It could be Noah. I mean, he's talented. I mean, we can go back and look. It was a struggle with everything last year performance-wise, and then, of course, we all know what happened with him losing his ride at Legacy.
Right.
It's just I don't think he fit in with that group of people over there on top of it because he just – if you go back and look, he looked miserable, man, even before everything happened.
Well, he noted, that it takes about 6 months to really gel with your crew and how much he enjoys being around these guys at SHR. I love, he also looks like he's been in really good shape. He's lost some weight. He had those issues with him throwing up in the car in Xfinity Series and all that other stuff. And not that he's ever been a really big dude, but he looks fit this year. Like he looks in the best shape that I think he's ever been in since he's been in the sport. He's going to be really strong, I think, come summer months. And I think it's going to be to a point to when he does win this year. And notice I said not if, but when he does win this year, I don't think it's going to be a surprise when he does do it. Yeah, if he went to Martinsville this weekend and won, probably be a surprise. But I think we're going to get to a point where that car is going to start running even better because he's legit. Noah Braxton is legit. He's a legit driver, and I think he's going to prove it. I think he's going to win this year. I really do.
Well, unfortunately, and we'll start going toward Martinsville with this. Unfortunately, if you win the pole, you might can lead all 500 laps or 400. My bad, it's 400. Yeah, I love. It hurts me to say I love Martinsville, but the next gen has ruined it so far.
Unless you get a speeding penalty on pit road like Ryan Priest did last year, and then the best car ran 21st all day.
And then I celebrated at the end of the day.
Yeah, I did too. Joey had like an 18th place car and finished second. Yeah, I was happy after that race too. But yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing to watch Richmond be what Richmond was. And I saw somebody on Twitter say this. They said that now it's what Pocono was in the mid 2010s. I'm like, yeah. You just watch it. You go, well, somebody's going to dominate today, or somebody's going to win on fuel mileage. It's not what Richmond used to be, and unfortunately, Martinsville is the same way now. Hopefully, NASCAR throws a wild card in there and changes something as we head in there this week. But yeah, I don't really know. It's also hard to predict who to win because it's really not about who the best short track driver is or who has the best car even. So,
well, I mean, if I was going to pick the best driver at Martinsville, hands down, it'd be Denny Hamlin out of the current drivers. Or Brad. Brad, all of a sudden, the last 3 or 4 years before the next gen got to where he was super strong there after struggling the earlier part of his career. But I guess we'll go ahead and start doing picks. I guess I'll go first this week. Toyota, I will go ahead and go with Hamlin. Chevrolet, I'll go with Bowman. Just
okay.
gonna go. I mean, it just seems like he's been running a little better. And usually he gets luck when he's running good. He usually somehow gets lucky and wins one. And this could be one of them races with it being so hard to pass, the right pit strategy. I think he'll be running solid. All of Hendrick is going to be extremely motivated this weekend. They're all running the special 40th anniversary paint schemes. So I think that's a solid pick. Well, I think he'll be in the mix, and and his look might come through. And Ford, I haven't done it in a while. I'm going to get back on the Brad train like I was on all of last year.
There we go.
And I will pick, and he will be the one I pick to win.
Wow. All right.
Because he's good enough. He's good enough at Martinsville, like we were just talking about. When they get in the track position, he will be. It's going to be hard to pass anybody, but you put somebody like him up there in the lead, it might be impossible unless you move him. So I'll go with Brad to win Sunday.
Well, I am going to go in Toyota Christopher Bell. He obviously won the fall race in 22, put him in the championship race. I think he's wonderful there. I think he'll be good again there come this weekend. Chevrolet, I'm kind of in between two guys. I'll be in the 24 and the 1. I love Ross's aggressiveness, which really pays off on short tracks, especially flat ones such as Martinsville. But I think I'm going to go with the 24, William Byron, just because these races seems like the one he wins. It seems like the ones that he wins now, right? With the luck kind of being more of a factor than anything else. And then, which a lot of people say you create your own luck. So again, that crew has done that a lot. So that's why I'm picking him. It's really more of a compliment more than anything else. The guy I'm going to predict to win the race, though, I think that Ford is due, and I think the guy that is going to put the blue oval in victory lane, and this is very much so an off the wall pick from me, but I don't know. I got a feeling just about 10 seconds ago. Chase Briscoe. Chase has had some really good runs in the past at Martinsville, and kind of suits him. And even more the reason why I'm really more apt to picking him. Forget what race it was, but after a race this year, when he and Eric Jones had their little run-in, what was that? Vegas? Phoenix, I think it was.
I want to say it's Phoenix.
Phoenix. He said that I have changed my driving style this year, and I'm being a little bit more aggressive. And I think that you get an aggressive Trace Briscoe on a track that SHR can nail the setup. Obviously, two big ifs, but I think Chase could be the guy to win. We have a long shot pick every once in a while. You picked Barry last week; it looked really good early on. So I'm gonna go with a
I was
14
proud of
car.
that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna go with a 14 car. I do think Joe will run well. I think RFK will run well. I think Ty Gibbs will run well. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Chase to win the race, and then the 20 to be the best finish in Toyota, and then 24 car be the best finish in Chevy.
I think we all got some solid picks, and I think, you kind of we ain't near excited with these picks just because somebody could take 2 tires possibly from running 20th and hold off the field, and it's
Well,
just
Joey's one of the best guys that has been for a while at Martinsville. But I don't. You don't know, right? I wouldn't be shocked. Honestly, there's probably about 25 guys that I wouldn't be shocked if they won on Sunday. I really wouldn't be. I think this is as wide open almost as a restrictor plate race, but in very different senses. That I
yeah.
think the race is probably going to be won on qualifying day. So
there's a real good chance of it.
Yeah.
Before we move on, is there anything else you want to cover when it comes to the NASCAR before we go do our GFR review?
No, I think hopefully Martinsville pleasantly shocks us. That's really all I got. So
maybe Goodyear send a bad batch of tires without knowing it.
Maybe they won't send any tires. How about that? Maybe they'll send enough to put on the cars, and then they say you have to run 500 laps on one set.
I don't know. That might be the opposite of 2.
Okay, 2 sets of tires. How about that?
2 sets.
How about that? 2 sets. That's all.
Because knowing my luck, Larson would run over a nail on lap 1 and wouldn't have a tire.
Right.
We'd be out there like we're on the side of the highway trying to plug a race tire.
Oh man, but yeah, GFR, right? Let's talk about that. GFR at Bristol was a wonderful race to call. I think that with what we've seen, it was really, again, 3 cars with a class of the field, in the sense that it was Loderman, it was C-Fan, and it was Happy. And Loderman, unfortunately, got caught up in a little bit of a lag incident there in stage 3. C-Fan was on a different pit strategy than Happy. I think pitted about 5 to 7 laps after he did. Tires kind of fell off earlier in the run there in stage 3 than they had in other runs. And C-Fan came out of pit road once everything cycled out about a second and a half behind Happy, and then ran him down and won the race by 4 seconds. So it was a wonderful race. It was a caution-free race at Bristol, besides the stages, which really messed you up. So tell us what you were seeing there in the car.
Well, I don't know. I guess cautions would have hurt me if there was more of them. I was terrible. I fired my crew chief. I'm just like Austin. I got rid of mine. I rehired myself to work on it this week. It was a good race, but man, I was so bad on the short run. I kept trying to I felt like I had a good car. I tried to make it where I could compete with them 3, and I just made it terrible. And then I just pulled off the wall pit strategies and didn't make no bad, critical mistakes like black flags and came home 5th. I actually led 1 lap at one point because I had fresh tires for so long ahead of them. But I'll tell you one thing: when they came by me, I was scared. They were moving so fast. It was like I was a dog out there sitting beside the highway, and they was about to hit or something. It was bad, and I couldn't keep up with them on restart at the start of the race, and then the one restart we had after the stages. I just wasn't. And this week, guys, if you're pulling for me, you might. This ain't the week. This coming week ain't the week to pull for me. I've cut my record lap down by 3 seconds, but I'm still nowhere near them.
We ran some practice laps the other night, and it was interesting. I actually ran them with him, and it's a Charlotte Roval, in case anybody's wondering where it's at.
Too bad my buddy Brett isn't in the race. I feel like I could beat him. But I feel like I could beat you. I'm not talking about, but unfortunately, you're going to be calling it, so I might finish.
I would be really bad in the Roval. That's not talking smack. That's just it's a matter of fact.
I don't have no room to talk smack about the Roval, so I'm not trying to. But we got a practice session tomorrow night. I hope I figure something out just to where I can maybe run 6th. I don't know. Maybe it's it's the Roval. Nobody else will show up, and I'll just finish 4th behind them other 3.
There you go.
But it's gonna be fun. We're entering a new round of the playoffs. The way our system works, we're all tied up pretty much. I'm technically the 6th seed. Obviously, C fans number 1, Dunlap was 2nd, Dark Knight, who had a real good, solid round, is 3rd, and then Happy's 4th, Hellraiser's 5th. Then you got Jay White and Nesta, and Real Smooth behind me. So it should be an interesting round. It's gonna be a tough round between the Roval, then Richmond. And then I really need to hope I get lucky to Roval because there's a chance I could miss the last race, so I need points.
Hey, man, Richmond, I think you got Richmond figured out on that long run.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty solid. I don't know if I'm C-fan them is a different level, man. They're on a different level. I got some work to do to get as fast as C-fan.
Yeah, I mean,
Loderman.
I'm glad I'm in the booth. I'll say that much.
Well, guys, I guess that's where we're going to end it here. Join us. Make sure you join us Saturday night as Brett will be in the booth for that race. I'll go ahead and call it, in my opinion, the best broadcaster in the NASCAR Heat 5 YouTube arena.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm going to brag about you. I know you're humble, and any good person's humble about themselves, but the rest of us are going to brag on you.
I appreciate that. It is fun, obviously. It's really fun. I think, a lot of people have been enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it myself. So hopefully people continue to tune in. So yeah, it's been exciting, I think, through 2 weeks, and obviously excited to see how the rest of the playoffs play out. So.
Yeah, and just one quick thing also. This is a small channel, but we've grown some the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And we appreciate every one of you that have subscribed, watching the videos. We appreciate that, and it's awesome to see that we are growing. And hopefully we'll build this up one day. But we're heading in the right direction for sure for the last 2 weeks. I mean, we've grown a good bit in just 2 weeks. So we appreciate every one of you for that too. And like we always say, go support your local short tracks if you have them throughout the week. And come support us and Green Flag Racing Saturday night. Enjoy the call. And we might put out a short later in the week just to remind y'all. But anyway, guys, we'll catch y'all next week. Y'all have a good one.